the world's largest island and the Nobel Peace Prize are both at the centre of an international crisis. US President Trump raising his rhetoric when it comes to Greenland as he threatens a tariff trade war on NATO allies. Joining me live now is Europe expert, Professor of Politics at International Relations at Monash, Ben Wellings. Ben Wellings, thanks for your time. How serious is this as a threat to NATO and that alliance that has underpinned the security of Europe for so long?
Thanks, Kieran. Yeah, it's probably the biggest crisis in NATO's history. The idea that one NATO country could actually act aggressively towards another is pretty new. I mean, there's been tensions between Greece and Turkey in the past, but there's nothing quite along the lines of this, because here we're seeing the linchpin of NATO, the United States, start to act aggressively towards another NATO member, Denmark, who has sovereignty over Greenland. So this is pretty uncharted territory for us again. It gets a little bit worn out, but it is very new for NATO, and I would say that if anything happens in Greenland, it probably is the end of NATO such as we know it, and that alliance that's been in place since the end of the Second World War. So yeah, pretty serious.
What do you think is motivating the move here by Washington? What is the strategic importance of Greenland, the largest island in the world?
Well, I mean, there are several things. I mean, the Arctic, when you look at a map of the world from the Arctic, the United States, Canada, Denmark, there are several, and particularly Russia, all share quite close borders, and if we think of an ordinary map, we don't see it in those kind of terms quite so much. So there's that element to it. There are the mineral wealth that we suppose is somewhere underneath the surface in Greenland, and this is part of the new strategic competition of the 21st century, critical minerals and so on. At the same time, it's also about cohering US control over the Western Hemisphere. So think about this in light of what happened in Venezuela in the early weeks of this year. Some of this is about sort of pushing China out. There's a kind of an ambivalent attitude towards Russia in all of this. But in some senses, it's the US seeking to exert greater control over the Western Hemisphere, i.e. the Americas, from Greenland, all the way down into Latin America, and at the same time ceding geopolitical space, particularly to Russia, but also to a lesser extent, but it's also true to China as well. So in other parts of the world, in particular, maybe the Indo-Pacific. So if I was in Taiwan, I'd be a little bit concerned about this development. So it's not just about the Euro-Atlantic region or the Arctic. It has spillover effects into our region and others as well.
Indeed. And just finally, on the tariff threat from Donald Trump, the threat to the European allies, the UK Foreign Secretary said it's not the way allies should be treated. The language is ramping up. Beyond that, surely there wouldn't be any military confrontation. At the very least, you got the pressure on the economic front, but beyond that, it's hard to see a clash of any sort.
Well, I think the European powers, including the United Kingdom, have maybe realised the limits of flattery. So, and I think that they are starting to alter their approach, because bear in mind, they're trying to keep the US on side over Ukraine as well, and not cede to the Russians in that regard. I mean, the thing is, of course, what's the next move after this? I mean, it could be increase US force posture around Greenland, and then we're into this scenario of one NATO member, that the most important NATO member, seeking to take territory from another, and then we probably would be looking at the end of NATO if it comes to that.
It's certainly, as you said, it's quite unprecedented, all of this stuff. Professor Wellings from Monash University. Ben Wellings, thank you.